Welcome everyone to our weekly Chaburah. This week, Parsha Nasso, the Shabbos after Shavuos. We will discuss many different inyanim that go on in the Parsha, but before we start, I'd like to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving us His Torah, for being able, that we're able to learn His Torah and we're able to teach His Torah. So I must thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving us that wonderful matana called the Torah. I'd like to thank Chazaq for all that they do for the Klal, as well as Torah Anytime for what they do and all the lectures they post and they give out daily. And the Torah that's being given over to the masses is incredible. It's incredible the amount of Torah that's actually put online, that at any moment and any time of the night, any time of the day, a person could hear almost a live share and the share that was posted. Kol hakavod. Before we even begin, it would be remiss if I did not mention the passing of the Gadol Hadar. Ever since Reb Chaim Kanievsky was nifter, Reb Gershon Edelstein was appointed as the Gadol Hadar, and as we know, he was nifter on Monday. He was actually giving a shiur Monday, and I saw pictures of the shiurim that he gave. He was mamish giving a regular shiur, and he was writing a shiur actually when he was nifter. A shiur after that shiur, he was writing. In the middle of the shiur, his heart gave out. So Klal Yisrael had a tremendous loss this past Monday. One of the gedolim from yesteryear. He's a friend, Baruch. I always like to mention a story before I begin on the Parsha, so in case someone doesn't go through the whole entire lecture, he at least gets a inspirational story. So a story that I'm going to mention, I actually mentioned a few months ago. I just want to repeat it for people that did not listen to that particular lecture, and if not, it's an amazing story to repeat over just to hear it again. The story is about Rabbi Yosef, and many years ago, when Rabbi Yosef was obviously the Paisik in Eretz Yisrael, a woman comes to him with a famous doctor by the name of Dr. Fisher. Dr. Fisher was an Askin. Dr. Fisher took care of many of the inyanim that Klal Yisrael needed to take care of. He wasn't just a doctor, but he was a Klal mensch. He arranged for trips. He arranged for people with Yena Matla to come to America. He arranged for poor people to come in and to collect and to set them up. He was involved in a lot of inyanim that had to do with the Klal. So there was once a woman that came to Dr. Fisher that they needed a psak from Rabbi Yosef. What was the psak? Her husband was very sick with cancer, and he was very much touch and go, and the situation was so dire that all the doctors gave up hope on him, and they said that he should go to hospice in Eretz Yisrael. He should stay in a hospice, and that's where he should end the last few days or weeks or whatever time he has in his life. So what happened was that Dr. Fisher came to Rabbi Yosef to ask a shayla. What was the shayla? There was a certain medicine, a trial medication that they had in America that was very expensive. It was also a long shot to heal, but it was a glimmer of hope for many people. There was certain trial medication, and this woman wanted to be able to go to America, and she was told that she might be able to get on the list, and her husband might be able to get this trial medication and a little bit of hope, a little bit of something that would maybe make her husband better. So they went to Rabbi Yosef because they wanted to go on Shabbos. And they presented all the paperwork to Rabbi Yosef. The woman stayed outside. Dr. Fisher walked into Rabbi Yosef's office and explained to him all the details. So Rabbi Yosef, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but he decided in Paskin that the woman should not travel with her husband and Dr. Fisher to America on Shabbos, and they should wait till Motzei Shabbos. He didn't feel that the chances, or whatever it was, I don't want to just say, but he didn't feel that she'd be allowed to go on Shabbos. So Dr. Fisher went out of the room, and he went to the woman and explained to the woman that Rabbi Yosef Paskin that they should not travel on Shabbos. So Dr. Fisher walked back into Rabbi Yosef to repeat over what this woman said to this psak. Dr. Fisher told Rabbi Yosef that the woman said that she accepts wholeheartedly whatever the psak of Rabbi Yosef was. She accepts it wholeheartedly, and if the Gadol Hadar paskins this, she accepts it b'leif shalom, and she has emunah and bitachon that everything is for the best. She also said, tell Rabbi Yosef that no matter what happens to my husband anyway, I have 6 children at home. If my husband is nifted, it will all be a simon, but she will take care of them, and she knows that Hashem will be watching over her, and she accepts everything b'leif shalom that Hashem does for her and her family. When Rabbi Yosef heard this, he told Dr. Fisher to please bring the woman into his office. The woman comes into Rabbi Yoshev's office, and Rabbi Yosef asks the woman, please repeat over exactly what you told Dr. Fisher. So the woman repeated over whatever the Gadol Paskins, she accepts, and whatever the Eibishter does is Latoiv, and whatever happens to her husband, she accepts willingly, and even though she has 6 children, which is going to bring them up, Apiderech HaTorah, and whatever Hashem does is for the best. When Rabbi Yosef heard this from the woman's mouth, he turned to Dr. Fisher and he said, please arrange a flight today to America. Friday morning, whatever it was, arrange a flight, even travel on Shabbos with her husband and the doctor, with the woman. They should travel to America. And that was the end of the story. The husband actually lived for another 11 years, it says. He lived for another 11 years, and he actually was in the koil by Rabbi Yosef for those 11 years. And he was nifta 12 years later. I don't know if he was nifta from the cancer or he was nifta from something else, but he lived another 11 years and 1 year of the therapy that he went through. So in total, he lived another 12 years. And that's the end of that story. They went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky many years later. I forgot who went to him. I think Yom Zilver went to him and asked him, does he remember this story with Rabbi Yosef? And Reb Chaim said, yes, I do remember this story. And then he asked Reb Chaim, he said, what is it that Reb Yosef Paskin originally know, and then he Paskin, yes, that she should travel on Shabbos? Does Reb Chaim know the story, and he know the reason why Reb Yosef changed his psak? So Reb Chaim says, yes, he's familiar with the story, and Reb Chaim proceeded to say that the reason why Reb Yosef changed his psak was because originally, for whatever reason, she wasn't Zaycha, her husband wasn't Zaycha, there wasn't, I guess Rabbi Yosef held there was no urgency to go to America on Shabbos. Once the woman said what she said and showed her such love for Emunas Chachamim and her belief in Emunas Chachamim and her betachon b'Hashem, that whatever Hashem does for the best, Rabbi Yosef felt that there was a tremendous chus that this woman has for her husband and for herself, because of what she said, and he felt it was kedai to go to America because the chusim will be strong enough, and Taki lived to those 12 years. So you see how Emunas Chachamim and Emunah B'Hashem could change a decree on a person, that even when it's almost impossible for a decree to be changed, yet with Emunah and a B'tachon that a person has, A, in Emunas Chachamim, and B, in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it can change even the worst of decrees. So that's one story I wanted to mention before we begin. Parshas Nasso. So there's a few points before we get into our main discussion on Parshas Nasso. There's a few points that the Parsha brings down, and I'm just going to mention them quickly before we get into the depth of our shir tonight. Parshas Nasso begins with the Leviim are selected for the Avodah in the Mishkan. The Leviim were counted, and now HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe to give out the positions that the Leviim will be doing the Avodah in the Mishkan and eventually in the Beis HaMikdash. And the beginning of the Parsha discusses the different Avodah, the different Gershon, Merari, Kahas, what they were assigned in the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash. Another thing the Parsha talks about is Hashem commanding that all Tameim, all impure people, through various types of Tumah, must leave the camps of Klal Yisrael. They cannot be amongst the people. They must go michutz lamachana. We're not going to go into detail. That's another thing the Parsha talks about. Another thing the Parsha talks about afterwards is Vidu. Talks about the inyan of Vidu. And we know there are 3 parts to Vidu. You have to have charata on the past. You have to be makabel that in the future you won't be doing this avera again. But the Parsha really focuses in this week's Parsha on the Vidu b'peh, that a person must verbally announce and discuss the chet that he did, and that he must say that I won't do it, and that I have charata on the past. But it must be done b'peh. So that's what the Parsha discusses, mainly the Vidu b'peh. Also, the Parsha talks about Gezel HaGer, if a person steals from a ger, what he has to do if the ger doesn't have Yarshim and passes away, the gifts should be given, whatever he owes should be given to the Kohen and to the Leviim in the Mishkan and in the Beis HaMikdash. The next thing the Parsha talks about is not to withhold dues to the Leviim and Kohanim, that a person should not withhold any matanos and maises and trumas that are supposed to be given to the Kohen and to the Leviim. A person should be very careful not to withhold them and not to delay in giving them to the Kohen and Levi. And now we're going to talk about the main topic that the Parsha talks about, that I want to base this share on, which is Isha Saita, and then right afterwards, the inyan of Naziris, Isha Saita. What is an Isha Saita? An Isha Saita is a woman whose husband warns her not to seclude herself with a certain individual, and this woman goes and she secludes herself with this particular individual that he mentions the name, Pliny ben Pliny, do not seclude yourself, and she does. There's a whole process. There are two witnesses of the process, what we call Isha Saita, and the drinking of the waters of the Saita, the punishment of the Saita, the reward of the Saita, and certain halachas regarding Isha Saita. So I want to just delve onto that topic. Now the word Saita, where does the word Saita come from? The word Saita, there's two shrashim that the word Saita comes from. One of the shrashim of the word Saita, what it means is from the word shaita, from shtus, that this woman created tremendous folly. She was very foolish, and she let the momentary pleasures of gratification and her desires to overtake her understanding of seichel and yashras and what's the right thing to do. And she let the momentary pleasures of this situation take over her, and she was nistera with a certain individual, and we're going to get to if she's guilty or innocent, what's the halacha. So the husband has to say bepeh that you can't seclude yourself with such and such person. Now the word saita also comes from the word to deviate, from to go aside, from to move away from. That this woman moved away from the tznius of the Jewish woman, the holy matriarchs of our family, the tznius that they had, the imos and the women in the Mitzrayim, and for generations of women that were tznius. She went and deviated away from that level of kedusha and tznius that our matriarchs and our foreparents had. So therefore, the word saita also comes from the word to deviate. Now, the pasuk begins that this woman was told, was warned, and the husband and the witnesses that came, and two witnesses that came and said that she was nistera with this individual. So it says behavior ish has ishta elakayah, that the husband goes and he brings the woman to the kayin. And Chazal teach us that why is this next to the inyan of matnas kahuna, of the gifts that a kayin is supposed to get? To teach a person that if he withholds what belongs to the Kohen and the Levi, and he doesn't bring to them the matanos that they are deserving and that the Torah tells us they should be getting, he's going to eventually one day never have to bring his wife to the Kohen for the improper situations, the situations that are not the way he would have wanted. So therefore, because he didn't bring the Kohen's the matanos, he brings his wife for the wrong reasons. Some of the laws of Saita we're going to go through, and then we're going to get through a little pshatim, and then we're going to go into Naziris. The person that the woman was nistera with has to be bar mitzvah. That's one of the halachas that I learned. A husband must specifically say, don't seclude yourself with such and so, mention his name, Plony ben Plony. The husband himself also must be innocent. In order for the waters of the Saita to work, for it to do, whether innocent or guilty, actually guilty, if the husband himself was metame himself with another isha, even if no one knows about it, obviously, then the waters will not work on the isha. Now, does that mean that the isha felt it maybe, and therefore she also fell, because once the husband falls, being that the ishta is kigufai, so the woman herself automatically has the timtum from her husband, because the husband's like the sun, and the wife is like the moon. She's just a reflection of whatever the husband behaves and the way he acts. So in essence, because he is guilty of arayas, so automatically she became also guilty of arayas, because she's a reflection of his actions. And therefore she will not die, and she won't get poisoned from the waters of Saita. Another halacha is that you don't need two witnesses. One witness is enough, not for her to drink. One witness is enough that if a witness comes and says, I saw your wife, someone's wife, go and it was nistera with another individual, the husband is mechuyev to divorce her, and he doesn't have to give her any ksuba money. Also, if a husband feels that his wife is nistera with somebody, and in his mind he feels that she was over on arayas, if he has a suspicion, he's allowed to divorce. He has to divorce her, sorry. And he also doesn't give a ksuba money for that also. Okay. The process of the Saita, they go to a Bezdin says, a smaller Bezdin, then Bezdin says, yes, we see that there is a situation here, they check out the witnesses, and then they bring her to the Beis HaMikdash, and at the time of the Mishkan, to the Mishkan, and to the Zikanim, and they judge her, and they tell her she has to go through the process of drinking from the waters of the Saita. And there's many halachas that go into the waters of the Saita. The famous one that we all know about, obviously, that we all talk about, is that we take the Eibishter's name, we write it on a cloth, and we put it in the water, and it dissolves, and she drinks from that water. And we learn from that the Eibishter says that such a sin, which is normally chayv misa, if somebody erases the name of Hashem, but when it comes to being mater a woman to her husband al shalom bayis, Hashem says, erase my name in order that there should be shalom bayis. So we see the great koach, not that she should be found guilty, but the Eibishter wants his name erased so that she should be found actually innocent, hopefully, and that her husband will take her back. So really, Hashem says regarding shalom bayis, there's an inyan, the Eibishter says that I even want my name to be erased. Now, we do know there's certain things that are done with the waters. They put barley in because it's achila of a behema. She acted like a behema. They put it in earthenware because she tried to, to seduce this human being with drinks and with fancy cups and alcohol and whatever it is. And therefore, what do we do? We put it in earthenware because it's a low keli. She acted. And we're hoping all of this will scare her that we don't have to go through the process of the Mei Saita, and what ends up happening, she admits it, and if she admits it, Hashem will deal with her, but she goes out, her husband has to divorce her, doesn't get suba money, but she doesn't have to go through that punishment right now of the Mei Saita. I will tell you that the Gemara tells us that if a woman was a learned woman, a woman that learned Torah on her own, and actually brought up her children al biderech haTorah, and brought them to the Malami to learn Torah, her punishment of the death that the Saita gets is pushed off a little bit. I don't know, a month, a few months, a year, but it's not, she doesn't die right away. She'll eventually die from it, but she won't die just from the protection of her Torah learning, even though she acted against the Torah, but the Torah is making on her. That if she's involved with Torah and Torah's of her children, and she herself learns what on a level that a woman's supposed to learn, she will be protected for a certain amount of time to the koyach of Torah. Now, we do know that the waters of the Saita are used from the Kiyar. The Kiyar was that copper basin that was the Kohanim and Levi would wash their hands. It was like 2 or 3 different spouts on it, and they would wash their hands, and the water is used from that Kiyar, from the copper basin. Now the question is, why dafka from the Kiyar? So Chazal tell us that the copper Kiyar was made from the mirrors that the women in Mitzrayim would use to beautify themselves in Mitzrayim when their husbands were going through everything that they went through in Mitzrayim. They were tired, they were exhausted, they were mentally not wanting to live with their wives, but they beautified themselves, these women, that they should go out to the fields to their husband, and their husband should want to live with them and they can have children. So they donated all these mirrors to the Mishkan, and these mirrors were used for the Kiyar, to make the copper Kiyar, the Kiyar Nechoshes. So therefore, the water is used from this Kiyar because she went against Shalom Bayis. She did things that were anti bringing a husband close to his wife. When the whole thing was made from the Ishayas and Sidkaniyas that actually went out to make Shalom Bayis, to bring beauty into their home, to make their husbands want that. And therefore, for that reason, we used the water because she went against it to show her that she was not like that. She went against it by going against her husband's wishes. Okay, now, there's a machlokes in the Gemara between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon. Gemara Soita Daf Kavav says, what happens if she's found innocent? Let's say she drinks from the water, and she's found innocent, and she doesn't go through the whole punishments of her body bursting and her ears falling off, whatever. There's a whole process here of the punishment of an Isha Saita to scare people, and also to punish her for what she did. So the Gemara Saita brings down that if she's innocent, Rabbi Akiva holds that if she didn't have children, she'll be zeicha to children. On this, Reb Shimon says that it can't be, because then any woman that doesn't have children, you know what she'll do? She'll threaten that she'll seclude herself with someone that her husband, she's going to get her husband to warn her. She's going to get her husband angry about someone, warn her, and she'll seclude and she'll overcome the temptation. And what will she be? She'll be zeicha to have children. So then women will be doing aveiros just to have children. to be nistera with another person, and chas maybe even falling. Therefore, Shimon says that can't be pshat. Not that she'll have children, but if she has short children, they'll be tall. If she has difficulty in labor, she'll have an easy labor. If she has pale complexion children, she'll have less pale, but she'll be zeicha that in her children. If she had the cave, she'll have scharim, but she'll be able to be zeicha to gifts through her children. So the real shaila here that I've always asked since I was a little kid, I remember asking this shaila, that Lamaisa, this woman caused major shalom bayis problems. Because whether she did the Maisa, whether she went through with the whole action itself of living with this person, she definitely was nistera. She definitely hit herself when her husband told her not to, and her husband mentioned the name of a person not to. So whatever she did caused major shalom bayis problems. I don't know if her husband will trust her ever again. He'll always be worried, always be thinking about it, that if she could do it once, she may be able to do it again. So she caused tremendous shalom bayis problems. She also made a tremendous chilul Hashem, because the process of the Isha Saita, everyone finds out about, and she's walked through the streets. Everyone knows about the story. Created a tremendous chilul Hashem. Why should she get rewarded at all? Why should the Isha Saita get rewarded? Where she's zeicha, according to Rabbi Akiva, to have children, and according to Rabbi Shimon, she'll have special children. If they're not talented, they'll become talented, and a lot of blessings she gets. Why is she zeicha to anything? She caused tremendous rifyai in Klal Yisrael. So I saw many years ago an unbelievable answer, and I also, before I even go to that answer, I want to tell you that I deal with a lot of public school kids. And these public school kids, they're not holding and keeping a lot of the Torah. In the mitzvah, sometimes eventually they do, and they grow, and we see tremendous nachas, and they marry from, and they become b'nei Torah. But a lot of them in the beginning, like many people, they're not from. And they don't keep Shabbos. Many of them don't keep Shabbos. So I once told them, I said to one boy, I said, what do you do on Shabbos? He says to me, I go to the movies on Shabbos. Shabbos is the day I go to the movies. So I said, but if a person can control himself, I was discussing with him. But he tells me an unbelievable thing. He says, I want you to know, Rabbi, that even though I go to the movies because I can't control myself in a way, I never eat from the popcorn or the cakes or the dishes that they have there because they're not kosher. So even though I go to the movies on Shabbos, but I'm careful not to eat from the not kosher. And I said to him that from the Isha Saita we learned an unbelievable lesson. I said, for that you're going to get rewarded though. You're going to get rewarded for the fact that you controlled yourself. You didn't control yourself regarding the movie on Shabbos, but if you control yourself regarding the kashrus, for that you'll get rewarded, because it's not all or nothing in the Torah. Hashem doesn't punish a person all or nothing. If a guy's having a bad day, but he does a few good things during that day, he'll get rewarded for those good things he does. Therefore, the Isha Saita, even though she did this terrible thing, even though she caused the chilul Hashem, and she'll get punished, according to some say, for her embarrassment that she has of everything she did, is her punishment. But the fact that she controlled herself when it came time, the opportunity to never fall and do an Aveira, and she controlled herself, to that she gets rewarded, because it's not all or nothing. The Eibishter will look at a picture, and he'll cheshbon it ice, and they'll every detail, and was a person worthy, is a person falling, whatever situation that person's in, Eibishter makes a cheshbon. And here the woman controlled herself when it came time to do the Aveira. For that she gets rewarded. And like I said, and the Psalm Sefer says that what about the fact that she caused shalom bayis problems and the fact she made a chilul Hashem? Psalm Sefer learns that the embarrassment that an Isha Saita has for the rest of her life, that people know what she did, even if she didn't do the Maisa, that is mechaper for her, for the shalom bayis and for the chilul Hashem. Okay, so that's regarding an Isha Saita. Okay, now we're going to discuss the next topic in the Parsha, which is Nazirus, a Nazir. So why is the Parsha of Nazirus in the Torah, in the Gemara, it's the other way around? Nazir is before Saitas. Consistent Nazir is before Saita, we're not going to get into it why, but Saita in the Parsha is before the Parsha, the Inyan of Nazir. Why? Why is Nazir after Saita? So Chazal teach us that when a Nazir sees the kilkalusa, he sees the embarrassment of the Isha Saita, he wants to protect himself, and he vows on himself Nazirus, which means that he's going to remove himself and be Mekadesh himself, make himself holier than the Amon Am, by being Mekabel himself Nazirus. So I want to let you know that if you look at the Lashon of Roba Kalkalusa, it doesn't say that he sees the punishment of the Saita, which he knows about. That is not what scares him. What scares him is Roba Kalkalusa. He sees the embarrassment and the shame of the Saita. What's the difference? Sometimes embarrassment, especially in the olden days, but what they understood what dignity means and what embarrassment means, there's an expression, I can almost have died from that embarrassment. In the olden days, people had a certain caring about themselves, that an embarrassment is worse than death. Certain embarrassment, it's better to be dead than to live through certain embarrassment. Therefore, what he saw wasn't the evil and the terrible death that this woman gets, but he saw Bekulkalusa, he saw her shame and her embarrassment. And that shame and embarrassment is what scared him of, wow, a woman can go through something like this, and therefore he made on himself a shvua that he will be a nazir. Now, some of the halachas of nazir we're going to go through a little bit here, and then we'll just have 2-3 little dvar Torahs on it, and then we'll end with that. So it says in the pasuk, Isha ki yifla neder nazir lahazir lashem v'chiper olav ma'ashachatu ala nefesh. That he needs a kapara though, even though he did something very special and very holy, but he still needs kapara. A man or a woman who shall disassociate himself by taking a Nazarite vow of abstinence for the sake of Hashem, shall provide for himself atonement for having sinned regarding the soul of a person. Now a Nazir is makabel automatically. A Nazir is makabel automatically 30 days. Even if he says less, he says, I only want to be a Nazir for 20 days, it's called for 30 days. And this Nazir is not allowed to do a few things. What are the things as a Nazir that he's not allowed to do? He can't have wine, he can't even have grapes, and he can't have raisins, he can't have skins of grapes, he can't have anything that can lead a person to chas v'shalom drinking the wine that a Nazir is not allowed to drink. Therefore, wine, grapes, raisins, any derivatives of wine he's not allowed to have. Also, he can't become tamei meis, but to such a level that he can't become tamei meis, that he can't even be tamei meis to his parents, to his wife, to siblings, because this is a 30-day of mekabel tuma that he's not allowed to get on himself, and therefore it's stricter than the regular tuma that a person cannot have. Also, he can't cut his hair, he can't shave. Now the question is, why can't this Nazir just make a shvua? Make a shvua on himself that I won't have wine. Because wine is merely the issue here. That when a person drinks wine, he can lose himself, he's out of control of himself, and therefore we're worried that this Nazir is worried that he's going to end up drinking or having anything to do with wine, and therefore he will fall, and he's so scared that he puts fences around himself. So why can't he just make a shvua? Why doesn't he just make a shvua on himself that he can't have wine, and that will be it? So the Indian is, when it comes to a rayas, the problem with a shvua is that it will dull the senses eventually. The trauma, the shock that he witnessed gets dull. So even if he keeps an aspect of the shvua, but the depth of that shvua will not be strong enough for him to not do the arayas, to not do that. Therefore, what does he do? He puts on himself a stronger Kabbalah, which is Naziris. So he puts on himself a stronger Kabbalah called Naziris. Now the question is, this is a holy thing he's doing. The Nazir is doing a holy thing. He's putting on himself the worry and fear that he will actually become desensitized by what this Isha Saita did, and therefore he's worried that he should never ever fall into the same situation. So why does he have to bring 3 karbanos? We do know, thank you so much. Thank you. So anyways, this Nazir, what does he do? He has to bring 3 karbanos. 3 karbanos he has to bring. He has to bring a carbon chatas, he has to bring a carbon oila, and he has to bring a carbon shlamim. If he did such a special thing, this kayat, this Nazir, why does he have to bring a carbon at all? What is the inyan of him bringing a carbon at all if in essence he really did something special. He wanted to be Mekadesh himself to an extreme level. Why did he have to bring Karbanis? So I saw an unbelievable shot. I think Rabbi Chasman says it, and I saw it from others, that being extreme is not something that Torah expects from a person. A person should not go to extreme measures when it comes to the Avodah Hashem. He should not go to extreme measures. Hashem created a beautiful world. Hashem created wine. He created the grapes. He created Achila. He created this. He created that. He created a beautiful world for us to enjoy, obviously in proportion, and obviously at the right time. But this Nazir felt that he needs to go to an extreme. But we're worried that people will think that an extreme, when it comes to Avodas Hashem, is the way Hashem wants things to be done. Therefore, he brings 3 karbanos after 30 days to show him and to teach him and to teach the world that being extreme is not the proper way to do things according to the Torah. The Rambam specifically warns people not to go to extremes, not to say, I can't do this, not to say, I can't do that. Don't put on yourself more than the Torah already puts on a person, because the Torah knows exactly what's needed. Yet, when it comes to our rayas, we understand that he needs to go to this extreme. Therefore, he's allowed to do it. It's a kaddish thing, but he has to bring karbanos. So I want to end with that. I wish everyone a good Shabbos, and we'll see each other, Mr. Shem, next week. Have a wonderful Shabbos, all of you.